Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. And today's video is going to be talking about a movie franchise. It only contains 2 movies. It's been over a decade since the original movie came out, and I really want to talk about both films because I just went out and saw the second film. Of course, I'm talking about The Strangers, and The Strangers Prey at Night just was released this past weekend. I went and saw it today. But also the original Strangers film, which came out in 2008, was released on Blu-ray by Scream Factory, and that came out this week as well. So the original Strangers came out in 2008, and it was one that I didn't initially see in the theater, but my brother-in-law, who's a really big fan of horror films just like me, just told me that I had to see it. And I remember when it was released on DVD, I picked it up and my wife and I watched it, and it scared the living crap out of us. To give you a little bit of perspective on the movie, pretty much what it deals with is this couple played by Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, who are tormented, they're tormented and toyed with by these masked assailants that just show up at this secluded vacation house that they're staying at. It's really one of the most terrifying films ever. Like I said, you have Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, who are both fantastic. You also have Kip Weeks, Laura Margulies, Gemma Ward, and Glenn Howerton, who are all in the film. And everyone in the film is great. I think this film is absolutely terrifying because it falls in line for me with the original Halloween, where you didn't know who Michael Myers was. Of course, in later sequels, you would find out that he's related to Laurie Strode, but in the original Halloween, he was just a crazy person in a costume, and there was no motive for what he was doing. And the same goes for The Strangers. You have 3 masked assailants who you don't know why they're just doing it for the sake of doing it. There's really no other motive than that, and I think that's just what makes the film so terrifying. Also, the director, who is also the writer of the film, his name is Brian Bertino. He just did a fantastic job shooting this film. The way that the sound design is, where the sound is almost like it cuts out until something is going to happen, and then it just it amps it up to this crazy level, and it just scares you out of your shoes. I mean, it really, really petrifies me. And rewatching this on the Scream Factory release that just came out last week, it still has the effect on me that it did the first time I saw it. It literally is a bone-chilling film. And I know not everyone is a fan of this, which surprises me because so many people love John Carpenter's Halloween, and I feel like it has some of the same beats. I also think that the people that play the killers in the film do a fantastic job, and really are some of the most terrifying serial killer characters that have ever been put on film. This film gets 5 skulls. So yeah, I love the original Strangers. Also, this is a fantastic Blu-ray that has been put out by Scream Factory. Definitely recommend it. It does have some carryovers from the original Blu-ray DVD release from 2008, 2009, I believe it came out, in terms of when the release was. But it also has some new features like a really in-depth interview with writer-director Brian Bertino, as well as interviews with Kip Weeks and Laura Margulies, who played 2 of the masked assailants in the film. So absolutely recommend this 100%. And I flipped the cover so you can see I did the opposite art. And you have both versions of the film as well. So you have the unrated cut and the rated cut. But yeah, it is a great film, and I still think the ending of this film is absolutely terrifying. But yeah, fantastic release. Again, another one out of the ballpark for Scream Factory. My favorite company that releases horror films. I absolutely love them. Nothing to say bad about them at all. So with that being said, I'd like to talk about Strangers 2, Prey at Night, which just came out this weekend, and I had the honor of seeing it today. So what this film deals with, it's not really stated like how long after the first film that this takes place, but the sense that I got from it was that the Strangers have been doing these types of acts that they committed in the first film for a while now. They seemed a lot more seasoned. Whereas in the first film, it seemed like it was the first time that they had done something like this. But in this film, you have a family that they're taking their daughter to military school. They stop off, I believe it was a family member's, it was almost like a trailer park, kind of like, it looked like a summer resort trailer park. And they, halfway to the military school, they stop off there to stay over for the night. It's completely abandoned because, like I said, it's only open during the summer. So the family stops off there. Strangers descend upon them and wreak havoc, and chaos ensues. With the cast, you have Christina Hendricks, you have Bailey Madison, you have Martin Henderson, Emma Bellamy, Lewis Pullman, Leah Enston, Damian Maffei. And the original screenplay was done by writer-director Brian Bertino, who did the first film, because this sequel was supposed to come out a long time ago. It was supposed to come out in 2009, 2010. It was on it just didn't move for a number of years. A lot of false starts for this film. But he wrote the original screenplay. It was rewritten by Ben Katai, and it was directed by Johannes Roberts. This film was, one I was really eagerly anticipating, and I was wondering how it was going to be 10 years after the original, if it was going to live up to the original, if it was going to be better than the original, and if it was going to be good at all. This film was fantastic. I loved the second film. It's very different. It's a very different vibe from the first one. It has a lot of 80s feel to it, 80s retro feel. There's a lot of really clever uses of 80s music throughout the film. There's also a lot of touches to former horror movies, some that were done by John Carpenter. There's a lot of homages to John Carpenter's work. Also, there's an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre in it. And it was really fantastic for me because there's not a lot of good serial killer movies, and I grew up in the serial killer heyday. I grew up in the 80s, and the 80s and 90s is when I grew up. But the 80s is when you had the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Halloweens came back. You had April Fool's Day, My Bloody Valentine, Happy Birthday to Me. You had all these great films about, these crazy killers and things like that. And they don't make too many horror films like that are in the theater. Of course, you have, It that came out last year. But most of the horror films that are doing big business are usually like supernatural ones. And this is one that sort of really, I felt, paid homage and respect to the heyday. There was even like little musical touches that reminded me of John Carpenter's score for The Fog. I really thought it was a fantastic film. I thought everybody in the cast did a great job, especially Lewis Pullman, Bailey Madison, and Christina Hendricks. I think they were all fantastic. Also, the killers in this film are played by different actors than in the first one, but I thought they all really carried over the work that the actors did in the first one really well. Especially the masked killer that Kip Weeks played in the first one. I thought Damian Maffei actually carried over a lot of the characteristics of that character really well in this film. But yeah, this movie is just a slam bang home run for me, and I was really nervous going into it. I don't think it's as scary as the original film, but I think where it makes up for it in scares is in nostalgia and thrills and shock value. It just really got to me. Whereas the first movie was a lot more personal because it was two people that were in a home isolated with these people descending upon them. Whereas this one, it's a very bigger playground where you have this abandoned trailer park, kind of summer resort area where, they have many more places to hide. There's all of this action that takes place, especially in the third act, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah, I absolutely love The Strangers 2. I am so excited and can't wait to see it again. I might try to see it again in the movie theater. It will definitely be added to my collection, and easily The Strangers 2 gets 5 skulls. So that is going to be it, my fellow fiends, talking about The Strangers and The Strangers 2. I wanted to make sure I touched on both of them because I've never talked about the original Strangers film on this channel. I would really like to know what you guys thought of both films if you've seen them. Please try to eliminate spoilers, especially for Strangers 2 for people who haven't seen it. But leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Would love to hear from everyone. And check me out on my social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Links are down below. Hit that subscribe button if you like the work that I'm doing. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy, stay scared. Peace.